The Branding Your Business podcast is for small business owners looking to build a customer favorite brand and a value-driven business. From solo shows covering marketing tactics to experts sharing their brand stories, each episode delivers actionable insights for entrepreneurs who want to impact the world. We're sharing how strategic moves and authentic connections can build a profitable business minus the burnout. Tune into the Branding Your Business podcast with me, Praise Santos McKenna of Come Plum, to design a brand your audience adores while building a life you love. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Branding Your Business podcast. I'm your host, Praise Santos McKenna. I'm the founder of the branding studio Come Plum in San Francisco, California. And today we have a soul sister from my home state, Florida, representing. And right now she's even wearing a California hat. And it makes me so happy. You know, just like East Coast, West Coast, it's a combination. We are the United States of America here. So we're all coming together. But Kahlea makes my home state look so good. Honestly, sometimes Florida needs good PR, and then this is going to be good PR for Florida right now. So let me tell you a little bit about Kahlea. So Kahlea Wade, she is a creator economy and influencer marketing expert with 9 years of experience in the industry. In addition to being a creator herself, she's worked with creators to help them secure over $1 million, people. Look at those double commas in brand partnerships. In 2022, she launched a talent agency called Alora Society, which facilitates mutually beneficial partnerships between brands and creators. We love a win-win. Under Kahlea's leadership, Alora Society has partnered with renowned brands like, you might have heard of Meta, Nike, Amazon, Target, Virgin Voyages, and more. She's also been on shows such as Fox News, The Today Show, and Forbes for her creator insight and expertise. I'm so excited to have her here because, you know, when you have internet friends in the same universe, I was like, oh yeah, me and Kahlea go way back, but we're like, have we even hugged in person? Yeah. No. Have we even synced in real time? No. I feel like we're just in each other's comments and DMs all the 100%. Time. And I'm just like, this is my girl who's using her God-given gifts and creativity to uplift others. I'm like, she's my people. So I knew I needed to have her on the podcast. But just know, if you hear the fangirl questions in me as they rise up, they are so real. They are so, so real. Kahlea, I noticed you are drinking a green drink this morning. What are you drinking?
I have a matcha. A Nami matcha.
A Nami matcha. Okay, what's your milk of choice?
So almond milk, like unsweetened almond milk, but specifically, I think it's the Kahlea Farms. It's like the 3 ingredient. I'm very particular about my dairy-free milks. I can't do dairy. So I want to have a milk like an oat milk, or I do like the 3 ingredients. I don't want all the gums and the added things. Yes. I don't need that. I just need almonds, water, and salt. Like, it's very simple. Or oats, water, and salt. I don't need all the fancy, or honestly, all the gross stuff added in. So yeah, I'm an almond milk girl, but I'll switch between almond and oat. How about you?
Yeah. Just keep it real, keep it from the earth. I get that. Yes. I will say, as a brand, I should do a Kahlea Farm study because I remember buying it because it was beautiful. Like their logo typography, the shape of the bottle, like the customer experience of pouring it in. It's great. We're just going to put a shout out. We'll send this to them after, but I do love it.
Little sponsorship.
Little sponsorship. Okay, I will kind of blow your mind a little bit, and this might be more of a California thing. This is pistachio milk in here too.
Oh my gosh, I love pistachio. Love it. And that's matcha, right?
With like matcha, like the combo.
It's so good.
Oh my God. Because it's like fatty and rich, but it doesn't overpower the matcha, but you can still taste the pistachio. They are a marriage. Like, I really love them together.
Have you ever done macadamia nut milk? Like,
girl, I thought I was fancy. You fancy.
Let me tell you what. I don't do it often, but I love, there's something about the nuttiness of those milks with the matcha that is just chef's kiss.
Okay, we should do a tasting, like a side by side tasting, and then a little flight, and then it's different when you get it cold versus hot, like how the milks come out too, like iced versus warm. And so there's a whole other study, and that's not what we're here to talk about today, but I'm telling you, this is confirmation. Like, our souls were knitted together from the milks to everything else. Because another big thing that I will say, this transition from milks to also our faith, which is actually a big thing, and it's such an interesting thing in the online space, in this like cultural world that we swim into.
Kahlea is very good about just being unashamed about her faith in God. And I would love to ask you, as someone with a platform, as do you navigate a big part of your life and sharing it? Do you read the room first? Do you kind of get to know your people first? Or you're just like, actually, this is a big part of who I am? I would love to hear about how you navigate that.
Yeah, I love this question because it is true that it is not culturally always something that just aligns for me to be super open and unapologetic about, my faith in the Lord, but it's something where my business is my ministry and it is the foundation of who I am, what I do, why I do it, the way I speak, the way I treat others, the way I, just work in general, that for me to not talk about it would be completely out of alignment with just who I am as an individual, not even just who I am as a business owner. And so it's funny because I don't, in aspect of like reading the room, for me, I see my platform as my community. It's the room I've created. If you don't like being in that room and me talking about my faith makes you uncomfortable, you're more than welcome to step out of the room. You don't have to be here. And so for me, I see it as this is the space that I've carved out in the corner of the internet where I'm going to be unashamed and unapologetic about discussing what I want to discuss and what's really important to me. And the core value of what is most important to me is my faith. And so when it comes down to, we've dealt with like a lot of, cultural events, there's been a lot of pop moments, there's been a lot of things that have been going on lately, especially, this year. And I definitely have prayed a lot for discernment and wisdom on when to speak, what to speak on, any verses to share, any kind of encouragement. Because to be honest, I didn't grow up as a believer. I didn't grow up as a Christian or in a Christian home. And so my testimony with how I found the Lord was very unique and personal to me. It wasn't, I was raised as a Christian in church all my life. And like, that's just kind of like what I believe. Like I have my own testimony with how I got to where I'm at in my faith now. And through that, I've realized there is a lot of church hurt. There is a lot of Christian hurt. There are a lot of people that have had really unfortunate experiences with people that are supposed to be reflections of the Lord's unconditional love, of his grace, of his hope, of just his, kindness. And I always have wanted to use my platform as a way to show a different perspective that, hey, maybe we don't necessarily align on everything. Maybe we don't think the same way. Maybe we don't look the same way or talk the same way or come from the same background, or we've had different experiences, or we have maybe different lifestyles. That I still love you. I still care about you. You're still seen. You're not any less. There's no judgment. I think a lot of Christians have done a bad job of just judging and, like raining down fire on people that don't look, talk, act like them, live the same way that they do. And that's not what we're called to do. Like the first commandment is like to love your neighbor as yourself. And I really wanted to have my platform be a space where, hey, you might think or believe differently, but you're still loved and this is a safe place for you. And I'm never going to share my faith in a way that is, if you don't believe this, like you're going to hell. I don't want to come across that way. It's not like a fire and brimstone situation. Yes, I do believe in heaven and hell. Yes, I do believe that, we come to the Father by like knowing him and, by accepting him into our lives. But at the same time, the best way that people are going to even be intrigued or interested in the faith is by seeing the way that someone speaks and walks and lives. We are people's first example of what the Bible actually is, of who Christ actually is. And so I always wanted to be unapologetic about that and be like, here's my story and here's my testimony. And like, here's why it's so real for me. And also I encourage you to figure out, is it real for you? Do you have questions? And my DMs are always open. And I get a lot of questions and people that are like, I've never really like met someone like you that like kind of, like you seem fun, but you also love Jesus. And I'm like, yeah, like we're cool. Like I promise we're cool, like there's just a lot of people that have give us a bad rap, I see it as a, really unique and divine opportunity to use my platform and use the space that, the Lord has given me to share who he is and what that looks like for me personally. And I've always tried to do it in a way too that is, here's what I've been going through. Here's what I have witnessed. Here's like my testimony and my story and, conversations I have with other people to make it something that's more relatable and understandable versus just sometimes, here's the only devotionals and only this and I'm only this and I'm always at church every day. And I'm like, it's like, that's not true. Like, so I think with that, that's kind of how I've, really approached it. And I guess first I read the room or navigated, sharing about it, but it is something that's so integral. And I've never felt led or called to have a platform where like I'm a Christian influencer, or I'm a Christian entrepreneur, or I am a Christian agency owner. But I have always been unapologetic about what I believe in. And everyone knows like, hey, if you're working with me and you're comfortable with it, I'd love to pray over you before we like get into things. And if you're not, that's fine. I'm not going to pray over you. But also like the way that I teach and the foundation for how we build and run and scale our businesses is based on the word of God. And people know that. Like I've always wanted to be unapologetic because I don't want you to come in and then like, we're not on the same page, like aligned in terms of like what we believe in, and that's fine. Like I respect whatever you want to believe in, but if you're coming to my space or you're hiring me for certain things, like this is where I'm coming from, this is where I'm at. But I always wanted it to be very open-ended with my platform that people are going to know I love the Lord and like that my faith is the most important thing to me. But I'm not going to push it down your throat. And I'm also never going to say, we can't work together because you don't believe the same thing, or I can't talk to you. You can't be over here because you don't believe the same thing. Like it's a space that's welcome for all. And I didn't find a lot of that when I started my platform. And so I wanted to create that for myself. So it gave me a lot of inspiration, but it's also just, lots of prayers and continuously just like seeking the Lord for discernment on like how to show up.
Yeah, I feel so much of that because it's a navigation of, okay, I know what space I want to create. Wait, that doesn't really exist yet. Okay, I need wisdom to navigate how to create this space. And at the same time, acknowledging what you said that much like Florida, the church has had a lot of bad PR. And
Yes.
there's a few folks who, like, bless them, have just not lived out like that unconditional love. Like, hey, we
Yeah.
welcome you however we are. So acknowledging that and knowing that it's kind of an uphill battle to try to change that. And also giving people choice of, hey, this is
Yes.
who I am. The word you use is unapologetic. And I want to ask if you're comfortable with that. And, I can pray over you. I cannot pray over you, but also know this is what I bring to the room. And this is something when we talk about branding all the time. What are your values and what are the things that are going to attract people? And they're going to be your people. But the thing that's really interesting as I've journeyed with a lot of humans is sometimes your life will spark curiosity. And I think that's an approach I have also seen with like, how do we just journey with people who are just trying to do life too? And then if my life sparks a curiosity in them too, wait, there's something in her that she has a more aligned purpose, or there's like a purpose in her to want to bring something good back into the world, and she calls it the kingdom of God on earth. What is that? Then that curiosity is something that's so interesting to me, and I just want to create spaces, even this podcast, to be like, everyone of all backgrounds is welcome here, and we will have open conversations. Because I will say, what I want for our world, what I want for our culture, what I want for the United States of America as East versus West is, can we have conversations with people who are different from us and also help them feel welcome, and just be curious about what makes their heart swell, what also gets them really angry, and how can we have safe spaces to have those kind of nuanced conversations with knowing like, this is what I believe, this is what my values are too. So I'm so glad that you create spaces like that, and also seeing just where you touch different parts of media and society to have someone like that. Like, thank you, Kahlea, for leading in that way. I think that's something so special. And what you touched on, and maybe I should have backtracked a little more, is that you created a lot of rooms. You've created a lot of spaces. Can you talk about all these pivots you've done in the last 9 years, from content creator to speaker and host now to agency head? Like, what are these rooms you've created? What has that journey been like?
Yeah. So to back up for a lot of context, I started, back in 2015 with my business. I started with a blog, and I was a freshman in college, and I had no idea what I was doing, but I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And so I decided to start the blog, and through that found out about brand partnerships from some other like food and mom bloggers. But when I even offered to pay them for mentorship and they denied me because I was too young and I didn't have a platform at that time, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to figure it out to, myself. And I often say, depending on, again, the room I'm in or the podcast that I'm on, I made a commitment internally to like, discuss and share education on how other people could do it if I could figure it out. But truly from a faith perspective, I also made a commitment to the Lord. And I said, Lord, like if you would help me figure this out and connect me with the right people, or give me wisdom on how to navigate conversations, negotiate, learn contracts, all of that, then anyone that you put in front of me, I will be a vessel willing to share what you have taught me and what I have learned. And so through that, through college, he did that and connected me with people that were willing to share and gave me resources and just increased my knowledge of the space through a lot of trial and error. And then I had a really hard time making girlfriends, to be honest. I am very much a tomboy at heart. I played all the sports growing up. You see the sports out, even though it's a fashion statement, like I love all the sports and played every single one under the sun. And so I always got along better with guys. And I felt like it was no drama. It was just easy. It was simple. And so in college, I wanted to have girlfriends and I wanted to have like that girl community. I was seeing it around me, but it was hard for me to cultivate it. And so what I did was I started a whole events company, and it was under the opportunity of creating education and just connecting other people in your city. But also selfishly, it was for me too, because I wanted to meet new people and I wanted to make friends. And I was like, hopefully they want to come and hang out and drink coffee and build flower bouquets, and maybe we can make friends through this. And I did make a lot of friends through doing that. And it's what helped me to like really carve out a space in Tampa and St. Pete as well. But I started hosting events, like they started locally and then I expanded those around the nation. We did one in Texas. We went all the way out to Hawaii and did one. So I did retreats and workshops and, just educational, like fun things. And then we also partnered with the Rowdy soccer team and did an event with a brand. And so the brands were getting involved. So it was this whole thing. And so I thought that I was going to graduate college in 2019 and do events full time. I loved it. It just lights me up. I love hosting. If I could host every day of my life, I would. I just genuinely love hosting and like pouring into people in that way. So I graduate and then 2020 rolls around and obviously the world shuts down. And so when it comes to pivots, there have been pivots because of passion. There have also been pivots because of circumstance, and having to be adaptable to the market and evolve with the market or with the world. So in 2020, then I pivoted I had a group coaching program that I was running called Network to Net Worth. I actually pivoted that to it being a course so it could be more evergreen and also more affordable to go from one-to-one to one-to-many. And so I ran that for a few years and then built out like kind of the online education arm of my business. And fast forward to 2022, I ended up hiring my now co-founder for the agency to come work for my personal brand. And it was at that point that I didn't really think about the agency. The agency was kind of in the back of my mind, but I was like, I don't really want to do that on my own. And also, I'm just not someone that thrives on sitting behind a computer and like talking to people all day. Like I want to be on stage. I want to be in person. I want to host, I want to be out and about. I want to travel. And so I just knew that the agency wasn't the right fit, for me yet, unless I found somebody. And so when Mia came to work with me on my personal brand as like my CMO, we started having a lot of conversations about agencies. She comes from the brand side of influencer marketing. I'm obviously a creator. And so we just had different perspectives, but still we were really unsatisfied with the space. And so by the end of 2022, after I'd pitched her and we talked about it, like both of us as couples, like me and my husband, her and her husband, we had all these conversations. We decided to launch Alora Society at the end of 2022. And so the pivots, it's funny because I love talking about the pivots because I feel that as students, like in college, as we kind of get older and we're like in our 20s, we are told like pick something and then graduate with a 4-year degree so that you can continue doing that. Or in your 20s, like you need to figure it out and you need to know what you want to do for the rest of your life by the time that you're 21. And then that's it. Like there's no room and space for you to evolve as a person and for your passions to evolve, for your desires to evolve, for the way that you run a business to evolve, like if you're an entrepreneur. And so I was looking at things and it's just as I've gotten older and as I've, analyzed the market, as I've analyzed how I actually want to be spending my time, as I've thought about, now getting closer to wanting to have kids, like what do I want to be doing on a day-to-day basis? Like that causes me to refine the business that I'm running, the input that I'm putting in. It allows me to analyze, like, am I actually happy doing this? Is this what I'm passionate about? Or is this what I feel like people expect me to do? And so I actually spent all of 2023 analyzing those things. And I was deeply unhappy with the business that I had built. We had launched the agency. I was feeling so on fire for that. I was seeing the impact that that was making. It was just this direct, tangible like turnaround in people's businesses. And it was insane how fulfilling seeing the things that were coming to fruition from that. I was like, oh my gosh. And so I found myself feeling very unaligned with like the courses and all the online education that I was doing. And also realizing I had this desire to like get back into speaking more and hosting more. And I just wasn't doing any of that. And so I took a lot of 2023 off to really think behind the scenes and like travel and also reflect and be like, where am I going? What do I want to do? And I called it my quarter life crisis. I was 25 then. And I was just like, I don't know what I want to do. And so I took the time and space to figure it out instead of like continuing to push because I knew that wasn't going to get me anywhere. And so when the end of 2023 rolled around, I made the decision to pull back from all of my online education in a way to kind of reevaluate. I wasn't planning to like close things down at that point, but just pull back, go more all in on the agency, focus on speaking more, focus on hosting more, doing more consulting for brands. And so now sitting here, like I remember this time last year, I was so lost. I was so confused. I had no clarity. I felt like I really lacked direction. And now a year later, I am looking back at this year and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to consult for some of the coolest brands. I was speaking all over the nation, got to build the agency. We're now representing 6 people. And last year we were representing just a couple. And just the ways that God has orchestrated so many new opportunities and so many open doors is true Ephesians 3:20 experiences that I am still in awe of. Like I journal every day and I'm still like, I don't have the words for like how crazy this year has been. But I've really leaned into the pivots. And I think that's the biggest reason that I've still been able to have longevity as an entrepreneur is I've never pigeonholed myself into one area or felt like I had to stay there. And even in 2023, I realized I had done that. And so I said, okay, we got to get out of here. And what does that look like? And it looks like time, stepping back. And I think it's really important for us to analyze those things and be honest with ourselves about whether or not we're still passionate about it, whether or not we still want to continue down that path. If there is something else, maybe that's out there and going after that, to not feel locked into, I have to choose something right now. And that's what I have to do for the rest of my life, because it's just not realistic. Like you're going to grow as a business owner, as an individual. Yes. Your passions and desires are going to change. And I, again, think about when I have kids one day, I'm not going to want to work as much as I am right now because I'm going to want to be home more and be present with my kids. And that's going to cause me to shift things a little bit more. Maybe not be a whole new business or completely changing everything, but it has meant that up to this point, we've been really working on structures and systems to support a future lifestyle. But it's important for us to just analyze all of those things and not get stuck. And so as a business owner, I remember like being, 17, 18 and telling myself, I don't agree with all these professors that are saying you have to pick a degree and you have to stick with this and find a corporate job and that's what you have to do for the rest of your life. I am not signing up for that subscription. And so I said, I'm going to subscribe to the mentality that I'm able to learn and grow and evolve and change as I get older, because I know I'm going to, and I'm going to be very honest and realistic about the fact that whatever I choose now might not be what I graduate with, or it might not be what I do 10 years from now, but it is going to be an evolvement of that because I am willing to evolve and I'm also willing to adapt.
I have not watched the Martha Stewart documentary, but I was reading someone's synopsis of it and they were quoting her and saying, if you're through with change, then you're through. And so it's like the constant adaptation. It's the constant checking in with yourself. You had a quarter life crisis, but Kahlea, you're probably going to have then a midway crisis, like in your 30s again. And then that's the thing is that I don't know if it's a crisis as much as it's like a reevaluation of, is this really what I want? Is this setting me up for the life I want? Am I so passionate about this? And I love this permission. And this is why I love getting people's stories here on the podcast, because we need to hear more stories, because we have, even though you are so transparent on your socials, we need to step back a little bit and get the high rise view of your life of like, it might have looked easy, but in it, she's like evaluating. In it, she's like, okay, is this what I'm still passionate about? Is this what still lights me up? And another thing about your story, which I want to encourage people, make things that you want. Kahlea out here just wanting to make some friends, she's like, I need girlfriends right now. I am capable of these friends, so let me host these events. And it's also seeing what happens, taking the next right step, because that intuition is also priceless. Oftentimes what you want is what your people want too. And so if you can just create that thing and then you pivot and then discover what's there too, then you create the next thing and you pivot and discover what's there. And so right now you're doing cool things with the Alora Society, you're hosting, and then you're going to discover what's in that space, see the need, and you're probably going to pivot again. And that's the stories we need to hear. That's the stories like, it's okay to change. It's okay to hit unsubscribe to the thought of this is your one path forever, which I'm really grateful because there are some people who are wired for that, but that is not for everyone. That is not how everyone is wired, which I bless those people. But if you are someone who's constantly like innovating and gets energy from change, it's okay. It's okay. And it can be really good. And you can create something that the world really needs and really wants, which is huge. It is so, so huge.
Do you ever feel overwhelmed by the many hats you wear as a small business owner? We get it. At Come Plum, we want to keep you in your zone of genius. Our brand coaching services help you with everything from your brand foundations to your brand and business strategy and to your brand expression, all those fun things like logos, websites, videos, photos, and more. Mention that you heard about Come Plum on the Branding Your Business podcast when you fill out the contact form at comeplum.com. And you can receive extra bonus things like an extra hour of coaching or even 10% off your coaching package. We can't wait to build a brand that resonates with your audience and aligns with your values.
Is there something that you wish you would have told younger self as you were in these deciding phases? Because I do remember, this is years ago, and this is how long we've been in each other's universes. You were at a Planet Fitness and you were just kind of stream of consciousness talking about like, I'm in school. Why am I in school? What am I doing? Whom? And I just remember that I'm like, I get that. I've had quarter life crises before, or many crises since then. And it's just like, I don't know what it is about a gym. I like love getting lost in my thoughts while I'm like doing a 100%. Little something too. But 100%. What do you wish like current Kahlea could have like stepped in, you know, on the treadmill beside you to just encourage you when you were in those moments? What would you say to her?
Yeah, I would tell her that clarity comes with taking action. I think a lot of times I pulled back from doing something because what are people going to say? What are they going to think? Is this what people want? Is this what I want? I'm not really sure. I don't know, you know, and then I would just kind of like paralyze myself with all of these different thoughts and feelings and emotions and questions. And I wish I could look back so much and just say, pick something, just go. You got it. Just go. You'll figure it out as you're going, whether or not that's the right path that you want to take. But you honestly sitting there and toiling over whether or not it's right isn't going to get you the answers that you're looking for. There is clarity that is found in taking action. And that's what's helped with the pivot too, is realizing, okay, I kind of had a timeline on how long I was going to spend reflecting before I said, okay, I've reflected enough. Now we're going to take action. Now we're going to move forward. We're going to go and we're going to figure it out as we're going, whether or not that's the right direction. Because if not, you know, either the market's going to tell you that's not right. Your audience is going to tell you that's not right. It's not going to feel intuitively aligned with you. So you know, that's not right. Or it's going to be great. And you're like, oh my gosh, like I wish I freaking would have done this sooner, you know, which is how I feel about like the agency and like so many other things that I'm doing now where I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish I would have just, you know, gotten over myself. But I think that there is a level of, you have to just move forward. You have to do it scared. You have to do it not feeling totally certain, not feeling like you know exactly how it's going to play out, because you don't know how it's going to play out. It could honestly be the worst decision that you make and you learn from it, or it's the best decision that you ever make and you end up right where you were wanting to be. But I don't think that you ever lose. I think that you either learn or you win. And I think that learning from something is still a win. So for me, I see running a business and being an entrepreneur, it's a win-win situation, because you're either growing and learning as a person and it's going to really refine your character, which is inevitable, or you're going to end up like getting paid to do what you love every single day.
Yes.
So there is no lose. And I think that just perspective is everything. And I wish I could look back and like shake my younger self and just be like, hey, you're going to be okay. And you're going to figure this out as long as you keep putting one foot in front of the other. And I'm glad that I did that. But I think it just took a long time for me to build confidence in myself too. I was not a very confident person, honestly, until like my word for this year was confidence, funny enough. And so looking back at everything, I think I just did a lot of things really scared. And maybe it looked like I quote unquote had it all together. I was just terrified out of my mind, but I just did it. I just did it anyway. And so I'm glad I did that. But I wish that I could look back and say like, hey, just like keep going, because there were a lot of times that I really stalled myself and didn't take action because of that fear. And there are times that I did, but I wish that I would have moved through it more and just realized like it's going to be through taking action that I really find clarity on the direction to go in.
Doing it scared. That is a huge thing, because a mentor told me you can't drive a parked car. Like you don't know where to go if you're just going to still be in park. Just go and drive and just like roam the streets, see what happens. You might find your dream destination, or you might get lost and you're like, okay, well, we're going to make a U-turn and get out of that path. But you can't steer the steering wheel if you are in park. You just got to try. And like what you said, you'll either learn or you're winning, or even learning is winning, because now you're like, okay, cool. That was not my journey, or that did not give me as much energy. And the audience will tell you, your market will tell you. And that is such a good encouragement, even for me who has gone down many dead end streets before. I'm like, oh yeah, this is the entrepreneurial journey. We're winning by trying, which on this podcast, I'm so glad that people tune in, and hopefully we can save you some of those dead end paths by just telling you a bit of our story. So we're going to do agency case study because Alora is so cool. Like in less than a year, you went from representing 0 people to 2 people to 6 people now. And
Yeah.
I love the agency model because it really is kind of what you said, your commitment to God, which was like, if I'm going to learn these things, I'm going to pass them down. And it's like you're giving wisdom to these people who are helping join your agency and using their strengths and your strengths. So let's back it up a bit. So, well, when you say you're an agency, what does that even mean to you? Because agency models are kind of different for everyone. So let's start with that. What does your agency kind of look like?
Yeah, so we see Alora Society as being the highest tiered offer in which you can work with us. So it's a white glove service agency. We're a luxury agency. And so when you're coming to work with us, you are trusting our areas of expertise and believing that we understand the market and the space best to be able to not only help you be educated on it, but to advocate for you in the highest degree. So I kind of see the agency model in terms of influencer marketing and us specifically managing and representing influencers and creators as advocation for them because of what we have learned, because of our experiences, because of our understanding of the space. We know how to pitch on their behalf. We know how to negotiate with them. We know how to, go through contracts for them. And so that way they feel like they have the best support in their corner and the best people to fight for them and on their behalf. That's how I see the agency. And the whole reason I started in the space doing education is so creators could better advocate for themselves. So, it's funny because I love alliteration, but I'm like, the agency is advocation truly for creators and influencers and taking things off their plate from a business perspective so they can focus on what they do best, which is creating content.
We all need advocates. For people, I even know the most independent people, it can get so lonely out there. So if you have someone in your corner advocating for you with best business practices, that is huge. Okay, so you're a luxury advocation agency. We can call it that. I like it. I like it. And so how did you onboard these wonderful folks to your team? How does one like reach out? Like, how do you start dating an agency? How do you get them on board to partner with them? What does that look like?
Yeah. So thankfully, with having been in the space for a long time, I'm connected with a lot of really amazing creators that are already they're full time, they're already earning, 6 figures plus in their business. And they're like, listen, I've kind of figured out what it looks like for me with brand partnerships, but I find myself getting scared with negotiation. I find myself not having time to pitch. I find myself not being able to manage the volume of opportunities that I'm getting. And so I really could have help taking this off my plate. So when we first started the agency, we started with a couple of people that I actually knew personally that were also based here. And they really gave us the time and grace to build out our systems and our structure from an agency perspective, representing them, and allowed us to kind of like use them almost as a case study in a way too, where they needed the help, we needed the experience like from an agency. And so it was a good and a win-win situation. And so from there, we, by word of mouth, they end up telling people about us. We end up also, obviously sharing more about the agency, saying, hey, we're looking for different, creators. We're looking for people to represent, like we have space on our roster. And then we're getting people that are, reaching out to us or saying, hey, I've been looking for someone, like I would love your support. And then also from Mia's perspective, my co-founder, she comes from the brand side. So there's a lot of creators that she worked with. So we already we have a creator on our roster right now. We're literally in the process of signing another one that she actually used to work with on the brand side that she stayed in touch with. So relationships have been really huge. So we've both as a team been able to bring in amazing creators that, we've kind of had a previous relationship with, or we've maintained a relationship with, that now they know we have an agency. They trust both of us individually because they've seen our careers and seen how we've, shown up, or they've had firsthand experience of how we've advocated for them in the past. And they say, yeah, let's go ahead and, work together. And one of my favorite stories about who we represent is her name's Taylor, but she actually used to be a student of mine. So I found her when she was like at 5,000 followers, just starting out. She ended up, she's been very open about this. So it's not me like airing out her her laundry out here. But she has talked a lot about how she ended up like borrowing money from her sister to pay for the course because she couldn't even afford to pay for it. And she was really like taking a leap of faith in me. But I knew looking at her was like, she has like that it factor of an influencer.
Yes.
And I knew she'd be really successful. So I said, like, just trust me, like you're gonna do really well. Like if you truly apply everything that you learn in this course, you're going to walk away with like way more than like what you're investing. Like you will probably be able to pay your sister back in like a month. She graduates and she earned $80,000 that year. Her first time like being a creator, goes on to make multiple six figures. So we actually signed her officially at the beginning of this year, and we had like done a couple trial things in 2023, signed her officially at the beginning of this year. And she's amazing. Like she's so fun to work with, but it's a really cool story of where she started versus us now representing her. And I was just in LA with her and we were being interviewed by the Forbes team. And there was a moment where we looked at each other and we were just like, what is going on right now? And like, what a full circle moment. And like, we were sitting upstairs in the lounge at one point talking and like tears in our eyes being like, this is so crazy. And for both of us in different ways, it was a full circle moment of how far we've come from when she took my course in 2020 to now where we're at in 2024. But yeah, it's kind of been a range. And thankfully, we genuinely represent the best influencers and creators. Not only are they amazing at what they do, but they're such incredible people. We're all friends. Like we were out in LA all together having the best time. Felt like all of them, it was most of their first time meeting each other, but we all clicked and it was just so beautiful to witness and to be like, oh my gosh, like we've handpicked each of these girls and our intentionality with who we've chosen to represent has really paid off. And it was just, yeah, so cool to witness. I'm still like reflecting on our trip to LA and being together like in person for the first time as an agency, but it's awesome. I'm very honored that they love us so much and trust us so much too, that they're constantly telling friends about us as well. And so we've had a lot of people that we have signed over this past year have been word of mouth referrals from them as well.
And this is so interesting about also building a brand, because a brand is your reputation, right? A brand is how people know you and how they see what you value too. And it's these things like Taylor can have a very rich testimonial of, okay, Kahlea said that this would happen and she like came through to her word. And this is again, so Kahlea quoted Ephesians 3:20, which I love that passage in scripture, that it's like the beyond what you can imagine. And then here they are in like the Forbes waiting room, just like, what is happening?
Literally.
How is this coming together? And I love that gratitude. And I love that you've attracted the right people. And I love that Mia has this strength that in a different background than you, that came together so perfectly. So it sounds like you hired her for your own personal brand. And then you're like just chatting. And again, it's one of these natural kismet things where you talk with your friends in this space and you're like, we could do something about this. There's a need about this. And so tell me, like, how did you know? What were the intuitive feelings? Like, this is right. This feels good. Mia is my person to launch this agency with. How did that come together?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, from a very business perspective, understanding that she brings a completely different level and side of experience than me. I have never worked in corporate. I've never worked on the brand side. Knowing me, I never will, because corporate is just not for me. And knowing that I would never be able to bring that to the table, and having a co-founder that can was huge. Also, I knew that at the time when she was working with me before we had started the agency, she was wanting to start a family. So she was looking for something that was super flexible, allowed her to be home. She's not someone that wants a mic in her hand or to be on stage or wants any attention. Like, she's like, please don't even tag me in like your Instagram stories. Like, just hide tag me and I'll reshare. But like, I'm so good being behind the scenes, which meant a lot to me because I always worried about building a company with someone who equally wanted to be in front of things and like be traveling, be on stages, and there to be like this tension or resentment of, okay, well, you're the CEO, but like, I also want to do that. And I feel like I don't get the opportunity to, kind of thing. And there's no conflict of interest between me and I, because she's like, I am so good behind the computer, like at home, and that is like not me. And so just understanding like personality wise and interest and passion wise, it very much differed. But at the heart of it all, from a business perspective, we really cared about advocating for creators. We're very passionate about creators and influencers being business owners and being entrepreneurs, and using our skill sets of knowing how this industry works and knowing how to operate and talk in the industry, how important it was. And we also really value relationships, both with our talent and the brands that we're working with. It was never for either of us transactional and just about making money. It truly was about making an impact in this space. And then from a personal level, I knew it was going to be the right fit when we'd work together all day, every day. 5 days a week. And then we'd be like, can we hang out this weekend? Like, I want to hang out with you. Like, so we genuinely became, she's one of my best friends now and one of the closest people in my life. And it was funny. I just celebrated my birthday and like her and our other team member were there at my birthday dinner. Like we actually have such a great relationship and it's totally God orchestrated. It truly is something only the Lord could have done. But we want to hang out outside of that and we're friends outside of that and we know how to separate like business and personal. And sometimes, yeah, we'll be hanging out and we'll be like, oh my gosh, can you believe like that partnership we landed? Like that was so cool. Or like the girls are so excited. So it's like, yeah, sometimes we talk about work because that's what we do, you know, all day, every day. But also Mia is one of the first people that I call if like I'm hurting or I need prayer or I'm looking for, you know, support in some capacity as a friend. Like, you know, and vice versa, you know, we're very close and, you know, talk about, I kid you not, probably once a week, we will text each other or be on the phone with each other. And we'll be like, how are we doing this? Like the fact that we're doing this together and we have the relationship that we do. And also our husbands have the relationship that they do. Like we've created a board of directors and it's literally me, Mia and our husbands. And so they're very involved in our business too, but just like the relationship of all of us, like it's only God orchestrated. Like, yes, it works out business wise. Yes, personality wise, it works out. But I have genuinely never met a set of founders that have the kind of dynamic that we do that work so well together in, you know, a business setting, but then also want to like hang out and be together and to just do stuff together outside of work because you love each other so much and you just want to spend time together, you know? So it's definitely like a God thing. And, you know, it's funny because I look back at some of my journals and like prayers, you know, I do a lot of like prayer journaling. And I never realized like what at that time, what I was praying for and not even realizing it, like who I was praying for to run something with or to have kind of like in my corner was literally Mia. I just didn't know it at the time. And looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I actually was praying for this and like, here you are, you know? So it's totally divine. It truly is like God orchestrated our relationship and our dynamic together.
I just got goosebumps. And it's also an encouragement of just like putting your desires out there, praying over them, putting them in your journal too, and just seeing over time how specifically, and again, beyond your imagination, some things can happen. And what I hear from your story and finding a partner or a co-founder, you a girl who likes alliteration. So it's like that chemistry, like having that chemistry, but then it's also like the capacity, like what her capacity was and your capacity. And then even just like the capability of what she liked and what you like to do and finding those strengths and putting those three C's together. It sounds like that was the match. And even just how your partners, your husbands are coming together too. It is such a gift. We bless you, Mia. May you never leave her side.
No, seriously, please.
No, really, just okay. So, and maybe this is more Mia's thing, right? Because this is, I know now in our like little case study, I know how you built out the agency by building relationships with a lot of your influencers and creators. I know how you found your co-founder, a partner to do this with too. And now it's okay, so we have our talent. Now we have to build relationships with these brands, but you've worked with brands, Mia works with brands. How do you continue to nurture that relationship in an advocacy way where it's like a win-win for your creators, for your agency, and then for their teams too? Can you tell us about the minutia of how that nurturing brand relationships works?
Yeah, so it's really twofold for us because you have the virtual nurturing. So simply the way that we're communicating over email, are we being professional but also personable? Because we're not robots and like this isn't corporate. So we get to have fun. Like we're adding in smiley faces. We're like, haha, or LOL, you know, like, and we keep it professional and like obviously reading the virtual room of how that person's responding. But a lot of people in influencer marketing are like in their 20s. Like we're just here, you know, we're here to have a good time and like, you know, do some fun things together. Right. So like we're enjoying that too. And we're not making it so like structured and stuffy. So it allows people to be like, oh, wait, that agency is like cool. Like those girls can hang, you know? So like over email, it's fun. And then I also do a lot of virtual meetings. And so I don't actually handle the day-to-day communication with the brands. That's Mia and our associate talent manager, Kenzie. But they are the ones that are like talking with them all day. And so what I'll do is say like, I'll reach out to those people that they're talking with, whether it's like an agency, you know, that's working with brands or it's an actual brand, like an in-house brand rep. And I'll reach out to them and be like, hey, you've been like working with my team, you know, Mia and Kenzie and talking with them about partnerships, or we just wrapped up this partnership with you on behalf of, you know, so-and-so talent. I would love to connect with you. Like I'm the CEO and founder and I, you know, always love to meet like who we work with and just like FaceTime in, you know, so I'll end up setting up those meetings because I'm also the decision maker, like the majority decision maker for the company. And so with that, I want them to have an opportunity to also like meet me and discuss and figure out like, okay, if we're going to facilitate like bigger partnerships or longer term partnerships, a lot of times they end up talking with me about it because I'm the one that knows from a vision perspective, like where all of our talent is. And because that's my area that I'm focusing on with Alora. And so I'm the one that does all the networking, but then I always will loop in the girls and sometimes they'll take calls with me. But because I have so much more freedom in the way we've structured the agency is for me to be forward facing, the face of the brand, doing all the networking. I have the time to be able to do that. And so I facilitate a lot of that. I will do the same thing. Like I travel. So switching from virtual to now in person, I go to a lot of industry events. I speak at a lot of events. I set up meetings in a lot of different cities. So I recently just went to New York and LA, spent an entire week out there. So I'll usually like go to an event or I'm speaking at an event and I'll like extend my trip and spend time there setting up like 5 to 6 meetings a day with different agency owners or brand reps. It could be a mix of people that we've worked with before, but a lot of it is also people we've never worked with before that we're trying to get in with. So I'll go and meet with them, introduce myself, introduce the agency. We always bring a handwritten card. And this time around, we made like custom candles that were like natural and hand poured here in Tampa, Florida. And so we brought those as just like a little gift and pay for their coffee, or if we do lunch, pay for their lunch and just bless them in that way, whether it turns into nothing or not. I also want to build a reputation in the space where we're just pouring into others, whether we get something in return or not, that we are a relational agency. We care about people, we see them, and we are looking to build something that's long lasting and long term. And so I get to meet with a lot of really fun people, but that's how we are nurturing the relationships that we are, building through inbound emails that are coming in where the brands are reaching out to our talent and, looping us into those conversations, or just like cold outreach of people, again, that we want to work with in the space.
This is so good because we have talked a lot about AI in our business and on this podcast too. And it really does make our jobs easier. And it also makes the human touch stand out more, if anything. Having someone like, do you want to just do lunch and like hug in real life? Having someone ask to do that. And actually, this is like an artisanal hand poured thing that I'm bringing to you from my hometown too. Like, that's what robots can't do. They can't do that. And that's what like the face of a brand and nurturing relationships, that makes a huge difference. And I really love to hear the intentionality and the organization is set up so that you can be in your superpower of doing that too, which is another interesting thing. And I want to ask you about how you set things up too, because there's still Kahlea as a brand, and then there's also Alora as a brand. And even though they marry together well, do you have a framework of how you're thinking through, okay, I'm going to spend this much time? Is Mia still helping you manage your personal brand? Like, how do you split those things up? Is it a Venn diagram? I'm really curious.
Good question. It very much is like a Venn diagram. Mia actually doesn't work on my personal brand side anymore at all. She's completely focused on the agency. And I would say this year specifically, because Mia came back from maternity leave at the end of last year. So this year in 2024 was our first year fully working together. Like, yes, we've had the agency for 2 years. This year was where we were like really hauling together and working in tandem more than we were in 2023. And so going into this year, I knew I would really need to focus on Alora for like systems and the procedures and the structure of things and really get that solid foundationally. But simultaneously, I also wanted to consult. I also wanted to speak. I also wanted to do these things for my personal brand, like you're saying. So I would say that it's looked like a 60-40. It's been 60% Alora, 40% me. And we'll probably start to transition more into like maybe 50-50 and then maybe like 70-30. So like moving more into my personal brand as Alora starts to become an entity that can kind of run itself, and we've put the right people in place to where they can kind of run it. And so my time becomes way less on structure of things and the procedures and the systems, which is what I've been spending a lot of my time on with Alora this year, and more on the networking and the relationship building and the hosting and just the exposure and brand awareness of Alora itself. That's what my role will move more and more into. And so as we continue to grow our team, it allows me to step away more in, because we're starting to create basically a repeatable system where you teach one person and that person teaches the other person. So it's not Mia or I having to teach. It's playbooks that we have and systems and strategies and the people we have taught ourselves that then become kind of the spearheads for teaching the people that come in, after them. So it allows us to free up our time in a lot of ways, which allows me to do, more hosting and speaking. And so in terms of showing up, it's definitely been a journey to figure out. It hasn't been easy to be like, okay, well, I want to show up for the agency. I want to talk about the agency, but also I do consulting, but that's not like necessarily under the agency, even though it kind of could be under the agency and I speak and it could be for the agency, but it's also for me. So it's like, there is a lot of overlap, like that Venn, diagram situation. And so I'm still in the process of figuring that out. I wish I could sit here and be like, here's my exact content strategy for how I split things up. I haven't figured that out yet. I literally have a VIP day with my VA, and we're spending our time sitting down for 4 hours looking at my content and saying like, okay, is the way that I'm showing up actually how I want to show up? And is it on the platforms I need to be showing up on? Because I've realized like LinkedIn is the platform I need to be spending, honestly, probably majority of my time, like LinkedIn and Instagram. Because LinkedIn is where the brands are hiring the influencers. They're where the brands are hiring the consultants. They're where the brands are hiring the people that are going to come in and just give them advice on things like, or speak or whatever. And I'm not showing up there enough. And video is also blowing up on LinkedIn, and it's being really prioritized on that platform. So I create a lot of video and talking face to cam and vlog content. So showing that on LinkedIn more too. And already I've been posting some stuff and it's led to opportunities, but I'm figuring that out. Like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, yeah, I've got it down. I still don't know. And I think that there's a lot of power in being honest that like, I have never tried to run an agency and my personal brand at the same time. There is going to be a lot of trial and error, but I am very aware of where I want to be going with my personal brand and where I want to take the agency. And so now it's just carving out the space and time to refine my content strategy and what that looks like for me showing up. And I think there are going to be seasons where it's like, I'm showing up more and pushing Alora more. And then times I'm showing up more and pushing the brand more. And like, that's okay. It's hard to be like, oh yeah, I think we'll get to 50-50. We might, and that might literally last a month. And then it's like, back to 60-40 or it's 70-30 or it's 80-20. Like, and so I've just kind of come to accept that I have to be fluid about the season and also the ebbs and flows of the industry, because obviously is like the holiday season is the craziest time for influencer marketing. So I've been able to focus less on Alora stuff because I've got my meetings done. I've done traveling for this year. And now I can kind of spend more time focusing on personal brand things. But I just shift back and forth. I'm just very fluid with, what the market is doing, what the brand is needing, what the business is needing, what my team is needing. And also, again, like what I feel passionate about. So I think coming back to our previous conversation of pivoting, I'm pivoting like every day. You know what I mean? Like just even in the actual businesses that I'm running currently, just because I want to be so fluid with what's going on and not ever get stuck and be like, well, this is what it is and it has to stay here. It's like, no, it doesn't. And we're going to be fluid and figure out what it looks like tomorrow. Because honestly, every day is different.
I just heard this wise, beautiful, wise woman say that action leads to clarity. Is that what you mean? Like you just are kind of doing it? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, just kind of doing it, you'll figure it out.
Just figuring it out. And well, honestly, it reminds me a lot of what someone said about marriage. It's not like 50-50 all the time. Sometimes it's like 70-30. Sometimes you're both 100-100. Girl. Girl. Yeah. That is Absolutely. So real. And I think the fluidity and not being so rigid about it as you figure it out, because the market changes, your passions might like have a few tweaks here and there. And I think that is so wise. So we've talked a lot about influencer marketing, content creation. And for us, a lot of the listeners to the podcast are just starting to dabble in like running their own business. A lot of them, my passion is having people leave the corporate world and work for themselves. You could grow so much as a person. Love it. And a lot of them, especially as they're launching products or even launching courses, they want to work with influencers and they're not sure how to do it. They're like, I'm a small business. How do I compete with a Nike or an Amazon to get in front of these influencers so they could like help with our platform and make it a win-win? What advice do you have as an agency, as a creator for these small businesses who are also trying to grow their platform and use influencer marketing, and even for them to dabble in their own personal brands, become an influencer in that way? What advice would you give them?
Yeah, I mean, this could be a whole separate podcast because I have a lot of advice on this topic. So I'll try and keep it short as I can. Number one is whatever budget you do have, let's say you end up having $10,000, just to give a good even number. Don't spend $10,000 on one person. Don't blow your budget. Too many small business owners or just entrepreneurs in general say like, okay, well, this is what I have. I just need to find like a really big influencer or someone that can just like blow me out of the market with like brand awareness and exposure. And that isn't necessarily what you need to be doing. That's not how I would spend $10,000. If I had $10,000 or $5,000, whatever the number is you want to put in this, I would be looking at nano influencers or micro influencers that are, their prices aren't going to be, $5,000 for one Instagram reel. It might be, $500 or maybe it's $1,000 depending on like the size of their platform, engagement, the niche or like the specificity that they have in their market, and looking at that and just getting rates. Like there is no like one size fits all rate where it's like anyone under 1,000 followers charges this, anyone between 1,000 to 10,000 charges this. Like it's still the Wild West. So you're going to have to do a lot of like research and just outreach to figure out what that is. But if you stick like in the nano influencer realm, which is anyone under 10,000, micro, anyone 10,000 to 50,000, you're going to have a lot more opportunity to spread that budget across multiple people and hit different spaces, different markets. So you want to be strategic about that. I would also highly recommend looking into UGC content versus sponsored content. UGC content is where the creator influencer doesn't actually have to post that on their page. So you take away the aspect of you having to pay for their audience and their eyeballs. You're instead paying for their skill as a creator. And that's going to allow the investment to be a lot more affordable and easier to accommodate. And then you would actually use that content like on your own page. You would use that on, a website or an email marketing. But I think also just at the core of it all, analyzing why do you want to use influencers? Why do you want to activate creators? Is it because you're trying to get brand awareness? Is it because you want more conversions? Are you trying to get exposure? You're new to the market? Are you trying to highlight certain launches that are coming in? Like that's going to also help you decide what kind of influencers actually fit in. I think of it like the games we used to play in school where it's like, the definition is on one side and the actual word is on the other. And you're like drawing the lines like and piecing it together like as a web. And so it's like, yes, if you want to do like an exposure campaign, then maybe you need to be looking at, it doesn't mean you only have to look at like the biggest influencers. Yes, if you're doing brand awareness or exposure, typically you think like, okay, well, I need to find someone that has like hundreds of thousands of followers. It actually, if you're strategic with it, you could find exposure within a certain market. So an example I like to give is if you're a hair care brand and you're releasing a new product for curly haired girls, finding a community that's maybe a nano influencer that literally that's like the content that they talk about. That is what they focus on. That's what their audience knows them for. Then hiring them versus saying, well, I'm going to go to the, OG influencer that has like 500K and see if like I can spend $10,000 just on them. Like find like 3 to 5 people that are nano influencers that talk about that, because like you would not want to hire me. This is my natural hair. It is straight as a freaking board. Okay. Like I'm not the right person. So you want to go find someone that has a large level of exposure in a tight knit community. You can still have an exposure or brand awareness campaign for that, because reaching out to 5,000 people that like are just, their person's just talking about that is going to be way more ideal than someone who, can take on sponsorships for anything and everything. And they have a massive audience and their audience might know them for like more than just curly hair care. Right. So those are some of like my main things, but I would just be strategic, like come in with a brief, know what you're actually looking for from a KPI perspective, from a brand, objective perspective, like what's the overall goal of the campaign? And also, what are they actually talking about? Like, is it about a launch? Is it a specific product? Like, is it a certain time of year? Like, what are they actually doing? Because you want to be intentional. Like, if you're going to activate influencers and creators, like you want to give them some kind of guardrails or boundaries to make sure that when you actually get the data back from the campaign, it aligns. And when you're showing upper leadership, like it aligns and you're not like, yeah, I don't really know how to explain this. I just thought she'd be a good person to hire, or he would be a good person to hire. Like, that's not enough. You need to be able to match the people that you're hiring with the data that you're then showing your upper leadership to ensure that you can continue getting budget, right? And even if your upper leadership is like a husband or a partner or spouse or someone, like you have to be able to say like, hey, it made sense for us to pour money in there. Can we maybe expand this by like $2,000 next year or $10,000 next year, depending on how big your company is? Like influencer marketing works hands down. Sometimes it works if you do it the right way and you hire the right people and you actually know what to look for because you're intentional about the campaign that you're running. It works every single time. It works. The only time it doesn't work is if you're blowing your money and hiring the wrong people, or you're not clear about objectives, or you're going into it and you're like, well, people say influencer marketing works. I'm just kind of like winging it. You can't wing it because it's not going to work if you wing it. You have to have a strategy on those things. And if you're listening to this and you're like, I need help with the strategy, I also do a lot of consulting in that realm for brands looking for that. So, shameless plug there, but I do spend a lot of time doing that and helping brands figure out like, what is your strategy? What do you need to be looking for? And what kind of influencers do you need to hire in order to align with that?
Rich. That was so rich in so many levels too, because what I'm hearing from you is having just clear objectives, and it's going to be a great win for your business and for the influencer as well. For you, again, I know we talked about action produces clarity, but we're giving you clarity right now. We're giving you
Correct.
clarity to do the problem that we did in school. Okay, what is the end result that you want? Okay, then we have to target these people or build relationships with these people. We have to find those nano or micro communities that talks about this niche. We have a whole other episode about niches of just getting really focused on who your people are and their needs are, because it does work. We've already seen like word of mouth spreads. Like we're going to be already sponsored by Kahlea the milk brand, just because we've been
Absolutely.
talking about
Yes.
it. We're calling it in. We're a niche community of alternative milk lovers here. And so it's finding those people and making sure you have a clear objective of what you wanted to push it. Was it awareness? Was it sales? What was it? And so having that as a base before you engage in influencer marketing. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. This is huge.
Yes.
But we're going to end the podcast. Are you ready for a game? Are you ready to have a little bit of fun?
It's going to be fun. I'm worried I'm not going to be able to come up with people.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. So we just did this a couple of episodes ago, and it's just called Who Dis? And that we oftentimes will have people come to mind when we say a word or a value, and because values are such a big part of this podcast. And so I'm going to name other words or values, and just like the first person who comes to your head, or even a brand, an entity. This is just fun. There are no wrong answers. It's just like, it's a little psychology just to see what's going on in your head.
Like
okay, you ready?
Now I'm ready.
I know. This is a new game show. The prize is just glory. Glory, glory, glory. So, okay, first word or value, adventure. Who comes to mind? Who dis?
Oh my gosh. I would say a girl I follow, Liz. She's also in the brand partnership space, but Create with Liz, she's always like traveling around and doing fun brand partnerships like in the middle of the mountains or in Europe or anywhere. So she came to mind first.
Liz, okay, love. Who embodies that?
Oh my gosh, I thought of my husband.
Okay. Sweet Mr. Wade. We love him.
Yes,
we love him.
We do. We love him.
Holistic.
Ooh, oh my gosh, that takes a second. I thought of one of my girlfriends, Jade, because she's very intentional about like what she eats, what she puts in her body, workouts, all of that.
Jade, love it. Great name for someone who lives a more holistic lifestyle too. How perfect.
Yeah.
Imaginative.
Ooh. I also thought of my husband. Well, we know who's top of mind for me.
Okay,
oh my
love
gosh,
it.
He's very imaginative, very creative. Yeah, I also thought of like my counselor as well, who's like very, very creative too.
I like it. Celebratory.
I would say Mia. She's very good at loving and celebrating other people.
Okay, last one. Whimsy.
Oh my gosh, whimsy. I'd probably say when I think whimsy, I think of like kind of like goofy. I don't know why, but I think goofy. So I was thinking of my friend Kinsey, who also works at Alora.
I love the personal shout outs. These are the people who embody these things. And I always encourage people, you have a personal brand, whether you have a platform or an Instagram or not. This is what people associate you with. And so it's very complimentary to the people on your team. I love it. Kahlea, people are going to want to connect with you and follow you. Can you tell us about your stand store? Can you tell us about where to find you online? Talk to us.
Yes. So please come hang out with me on Instagram. That's where I spend most of my time. If you're listening to this, slide into my DM, say hello. It's at Kahlea Nicole. I'm sure it'll be in like the show notes and everything. But there, connect with me on LinkedIn if we want to be like professional. I'm trying to make it cooler over there too, not like too stuffy. So LinkedIn. And then also if you're listening to this as a creator or an influencer and you're looking for help when it comes to pitching, negotiating, reading contracts, like just building your brand and then monetizing it through partnerships, we have a couple resources in my stand store that can help you with that. And I would also say if you're a brand listening to this and you're wanting to understand how creators are figuring out their rates, how they're negotiating, like you want to flip the script and get into the mind of a creator, those resources would also be really good for you too.
And she consults people. Just hire her. She's amazing. Look at what she's
I
doing.
speak. There's a lot of things. So there's like, you're listening to this and you're like, oh my gosh, I have an event coming up, or, oh my gosh, like I want to create an influencer strategy. Then I'd love to kind of pour into you in that way too. And I also offer VIP days if you're wanting to just kind of sit down and do like an overhaul of your strategy versus just like a one-on-one call or just an event situation. If you're looking for kind of more time together, I do half day VIPs for like 4 hours and full days for 8 hours. So we can like really cover a lot of ground in that time.
And then just join us for our matcha flight tasting coming to Florida in like the end of 2024 or 25. Like it's coming. Just look out for an event on your calendar. Yeah, it's going to happen. Thank you so much for sharing so much with us. Again, this has just made me even more of a fangirl of you. Really appreciate it.
Aw, thank you so much. I appreciate you having me.